too much. That's probably a better analogy. But it was
a visual image you put there for me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not. That was.
Thank God. Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Rose and Rockstar from the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. It's Saturday the 12th of January. I hope you're well and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. As a regular listener, you'll know we've split the podcast in half, and on Saturdays we visit our virtual bar. You'll also know that I'm your host, Ian Truscott, and I'm not a rockstar, but I am a CMO on a mission to share marketing street knowledge to bring out the Rockstar CMO in you. In a moment, I will join my friend, the Chief Troublemaker, Robert Rose from the 7th Bear, the artist formerly known as the Content Advisory, and tonight he is moonlighting behind the bar of our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar. I'll grab a cocktail and pick his brains with a marketing question. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to the bar. Welcome to the weekend.
Thank you, mate. I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you very much. And I'm looking this evening, mate, for a cocktail to get us going. What do you recommend?
It's interesting. So first of all, it's the new year. Mm-hmm. And with the new year, it's the middle of winter. And, you know, we wanted to do something a little special for the beginning of January, the beginning of a new year, the beginning of everything. And so we have what we call, basically, it's a very special name. It's called the Winter Cocktail. Yeah, it's very specific. And believe it or not, this cocktail comes to us courtesy of the 1900s. It's been around for a long time. And it's a rum drink, and I know a rum drink in the middle of winter may not be sort of the immediate inclination, but yes, it starts with 2 full ounces or 2 parts of rum, and then find your favorite ginger liqueur or a ginger brandy if you really want to go, if you really want to basically be put out to sleep. But a ginger brandy would be lovely, or a ginger liqueur is good as well. And then you're going to add a little bit of lime juice to that, and then a little bit of aromatic bitters, just a little orange bitters or whatever you have gathering around the house. And there you sort of mix all that together. You're going to pour it into sort of a martini or a high cocktail glass, after it's shaken up really well over ice, and it's going to be drunk like a martini. But this is going to be very wintry, gingery rum drink that's going to make you very especially warm. And the added bonus is, if you want to, you can basically heat this up and make a hot toddy out of it. Wow. It's also lovely as a hot toddy.
That sounds fantastic, mate. And so, yes, let's have a couple of those. If you're happy to be drinking while you're working behind the bar. And I understand.
I am. It is a job, right? It is a job, but I do enjoy my job. Yes.
So, I understand that not only are you the mixologist at the Rose and Rockstar, but you also know a little bit about marketing. And
it's the rumor. I have been known to spin a yarn or two.
Well, I have some questions for you, my friend. And I'd love your help with these. It's the beginning of 2025, right? And the world is talking about predictions. And I don't know if you've heard this, but there's all these predictions podcasts, predictions, blog posts. I'm trying to find my way through some of these things. So the first question I have for you, mate, is what's your favorite prediction for 2025?
My biggest prediction for 2025?
Your favorite one, or the one that you found? Prediction. Yeah, one I should really focus on amongst all these others that I keep seeing.
I will tell you, my favorite prediction is one that my friend Joe made. Uh-huh. And he talked about the idea in marketing of a return to nostalgia. Oh. And I think maybe it's more hope than it is really a prediction or just my bad. It's one that I really, really do hope comes true. And he talked about the idea of, in the world of digital and AI and sort of fake content and sort of newfound CGI'd computer generated content and all that sort of very slick stuff, that nostalgia and the nostalgic look was going to become sort of a trend in both B2B and B2C marketing. And I love that because, and I believe it to be true. I mean, again, maybe it's more aspirational and hopeful than it is actually, realistically true. But but it's my favorite prediction by far.
I like that, and I think as well is there's a lot of talk at the moment about putting the human into all the generational content right now, because there's so much shit being produced by generative AI, right? So it sounds like that's a nostalgic view as well, isn't it? That of the author and of it being from a person. Is that the sort of thing you think Joe was thinking?
Yeah, it's also that sort of thing that is impossible to fake, right? So if you go back and look at something that already exists in history, whether it's a classic TV commercial or a classic song or classic image or classic logo or, so many different things that already exist in the context of history. Right. And you can go back to how you felt about it like a kid or a young person again and sort of pull that into the way that you market in 2025 and create that sort of nostalgic feeling with your audience. I think there's a real interesting value there because it starts to differentiate against that sort of overly slick, computer generated, new, that you've never seen before kind of idea. I mean, arguably, Coca-Cola tried to do that a little bit this year when they did the AI generated version of their sort of famous, ads, the sleigh moving through the snow and the little animals running around and Coca-Cola trucks moving through the snow driven road to be able to deliver Coke on a Christmas Eve kind of thing. And everybody sort of got lost in the fact that it was AI instead of sort of the fact that it was a throwback to many of their commercials that they'd created since the 70s. And the interesting thing to me is I would have almost rather seen like just a repeat of one of the commercials that they did 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I think that might have been really interesting as a choice. And I think that's the kind of thing that we might start to see is the reuse and or the replay of some of those classic images, words, headlines, logos, whatever they may be, as a function of some of the things that we'll do in marketing as a way of driving an emotional connection to a brand, in a very nostalgic way.
Yeah, and how do you think? I mean, I'm a B2B marketer. How would one apply that sort of thinking to B2B, which is, I mean, it is about emotion when you're buying something in B2B, but it isn't. It's not traditionally associated with emotion. Do you think there's a play there for this sort of nostalgic view when it comes to B2B marketing?
I do. I mean, B2B marketers tend to be a little more insular, right? So we have a little more of the so for example, my wife doesn't understand I was looking at an old Apple logo the other day. And then I started looking at the old Cisco logo and the old Netscape and, some of the, even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, some of the old B2B companies that were around and providing, much of the early digital solutions. And I was like, oh, this would be such a great piece of content for someone who's providing similar services today, but in a new way, right? To be able to bring back sort of the history and the experience and the wisdom of some of those early ideas and bring that to a B2B format where it would be an inside joke, right? It would be for B2B marketers who got the inside joke about that thing, but it would be a lovely way to create a connection to those who got the joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that would still work on the younger consumer? I mean, they're all talking about
I don't know that it would.
Yeah.
I don't know that
So
it would. I don't have enough knowledge about the younger consumer these days to know whether they're identifying with nostalgia.
Yeah.
From what I've read, they do. They really do. They, especially the 80s, there's some sort of fascination that the young Gen Z crowd has with the 1980s and 1990s. But I don't know that it would resonate as well. It's a guess.
I think there's an interesting one in B2B. I love the prediction. And obviously, I believe that when you're not working in this bar, you're on a podcast with Joe Polizzi called This Old Marketing. And I think that, and I heard that as well. And I really like that prediction. And I think it definitely has a place in B2C. And I agree with you that we should start experimenting in B2B. And I think it would be differentiated as well, which is the thing we've been driving towards, right? Getting away from this a B2Beige marketing that we're all doing and being just similar to each other. Is let's pluck up something really interesting and 80s and neon and see if that works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the funny thing is I get, I'm very lucky in that when I write my weekly column for Content Marketing Institute and white papers and whatnot for various clients, I tend to use a lot of my own experience in pop culture as metaphors.
Yeah.
And I get corrected a lot, which is, that the audience won't identify with that joke. If I reference Seinfeld, or if I reference Breakfast Club, or if I reference Duran Duran or something like that, a lot of the younger generation just isn't going to get the reference. And they bring it up to me all the time. And it's right that they do, because I'm bringing up a reference that the current audience isn't familiar with. And so they're just not going to get the joke, or it's not going to have the same power as a metaphor as something more current and or relevant would be. And so having that knowledge is really key, but then leaning into it is also sort of the differentiating, right? There's a way to do that in a way that you lean into that idea. And so you create that funny onboarding video that sort of makes fun of Breakfast Club as an example, right? I can imagine a computer onboarding, some sort of high-tech onboarding video for users to use the Breakfast Club as sort of a fun sort of metaphor of getting onboarded with, your Salesforce account or something like that. It would be a sort of a kickback to the nostalgia, but also sort of a recognition of that it's new.
Yeah. And I think that really outlines the fact that you need to, like I think you were saying there, you need to understand who that audience is. Because I've done the same.
It always starts that way, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I've done the same thing, and I've referred to Monty Python, and that's actually even. I mean, you're a similar age to myself. That's kind of like at the beginning of our cultural reference, let alone anybody younger than us, right? And yet I've made that reference, and people that get it really get it, and they really lean into and they engage with you and they think it's super funny, right? So I think if you can be very specific to your audience and have a specific audience, this can really work.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned Monty Python, because in my keynote at Content Marketing World, and I've been doing it in talks as well. I did it at Marketing Profs as well. I did a talk where I referenced where marketers feel these days, and I called it we are the Knights of Meh. and see, you get it, right? I mean, but the younger generation that hasn't seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail go, what are you talking? I mean, they might find it an interesting turn of phrase, but they have no idea that it connects to the Knights of Ni.
Yeah, exactly. So how would
Knights who say Ni?
And it's because when I'm writing, I'm thinking about that, and I can build a whole narrative around something like that, some old reference. And also, when I do my newsletter, I'm often making reference to music. And again, like you, sometimes it's like Duran Duran, and sometimes it's something a little bit more modern.
Right.
How does one stay grounded in what are the references that are actually going to hit and work? I know that we've kind of moved a little bit from nostalgic marketing, but it is that, isn't it? It's we're kind of trying to generate a feeling within our niche that we understand and see each other because we've made a reference we both understand.
It's a connection, right?
Yeah.
It's that's where you create. It's the power that pop culture, or and in so many ways, this is another discussion to be had, really. In so many ways, marketing has and especially B2B marketing has lost its connection to culture and art. Because we've become so algorithmically driven by the exact right way to phrase things in a headline, or the right way to create a persuasive call to action. The art of connecting our marketing creative to the cultural moment, especially in B2B, is lost. It's somewhat still there in B2C because of the obvious, connections to fashion and media and all those kinds of things that are still there, especially in the influencer space.
Yeah.
But in so many ways, we have lost that ability to connect through art, through the idea of what is art or culture in our marketing. And I think maybe going back to the original prediction, that's really the aspiration that I have, or the hopefulness I have for it, is really, how do we create better and stronger connections with our audiences, our customers, our constituencies, our donors, or whoever it may be. And typically, cultural events or cultural moments are great ways to create that fast bond, right? It's just like you meet somebody in a bar and you sort of bond over the fact that you enjoy the same sports teams, or you enjoy the same movie, or you enjoy the same music, or whatever it is, and you connect over that. Brands have that opportunity too.
Yeah. And I think that to the point you were making just a moment ago, which is that our sort of marketing automation, now data and an obsession is the challenge here, isn't it? It's because we're in B2B, we try to be something for everybody in a way, and we're a bit afraid to close the funnel at the very top and really not talk directly to our tribe, but to sort of, and that's always the pressure, isn't it, from the C-suite and the commercial leaders, is that that's a bit harsh, that'll exclude these people. And it's like, well, that's the point, is because for you to have a message that resonates, somebody needs to not like it, is it? And it's a bit like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it, but and that pendulum swings too far on both sides, right?
Yeah.
So on one side, for example, even calling it a tribe is wrong these days,
right?
And so the idea of segmenting down to a singular audience can feel so exclusionary that it starts to be like, who are you? The question becomes, who are you excluding, rather than you're super special for one particular group. And then on the other side, it becomes like, hey, you're identifying with a group that I don't identify with, therefore I hate you now. I mean, the sort of on the other side of that pendulum. So it becomes very hard for a brand to balance that idea to say, well, we really would like to make a campaign or make a piece of content that's very specific to one very particular group, because we'd like to show how much we either are in affinity with that group, or that we want to attract that group, or we want to be part of that group, without sort of angering the sort of pitchforks and mobs on either side of the fence.
Well, I'm not afraid of the pitchforks in a sense. If the people with that get more excited by you get more excited by you, and they were going to be your people anyway, right? And I've always thought about this as like, like a sales guy's favorite second answer is a quick no. I mean, his favorite answer is yes, but a quick no. And I think that it's almost the same in marketing. There's no point in leading somebody through the buyer's journey if ultimately we're not for them, right? But what I hadn't thought about, I mean, I use the term tribes all the time because I'm, sucking on the teat of Seth Godin too hard. No, that's probably the wrong word, isn't it? It's drinking his Kool-Aid too much. That's probably a better analogy. But it
was a visual image you put there for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not. That was.
Thank God we're in the bar. So what was explore that with me a little bit. Do you think then is it wrong for me to talk about tribes in my writing when I talk about being right for a group of people?
Well, I don't think it's wrong to be talking about why you're right for a group of people, but it's but what has happened is that we have become, in some people would argue, and I won't argue either way here, but some people would argue that we have become sensitized or oversensitized to our use of language, and the word tribal is, has baggage to it now. And I won't comment one way or the other of whether it's right or wrong to have the baggage, but it does. I mean, it's just an observation that the word has baggage now. And so using that word now is, we call it, for example, in our consulting work, we don't say tribal knowledge anymore when we talk about the knowledge or the institutional knowledge within a particular company. We call it the tacit knowledge, which is the knowledge that is embedded within the institution, that new people learn, the habits that new people learn, what we would broadly call the culture of an organization, then, sort of embedded knowledge within the people, independent of whether you're new or old there. It's just like, this is the way things are done. What we would before call tribal knowledge, we just don't anymore because of that word.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. All right, man, fella. Well, I mean, eventually you have to leave the bar, and I welcome your advice and this jolly nice cocktail. But if once I leave the bar and I need some advice on marketing, where might I find that?
You'll find me at our brand new, sparkly new, shiny home on the web, which is called seventhbear.com. We've launched our new brand and our new company, and we are officially launched here in January. So seventhbear.com is where we blog and where we put lots of our new bright and shiny content.
Splendid. And when people want a bit more of a personal relationship with you and they spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you?
Well, they can come join my tribe at the... all right. Never mind. I couldn't resist. They can come join. I would love to connect with everybody on LinkedIn. It is the place where I'm definitely putting all of my efforts on social media these days.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of blue sky as well, but is a
little bit on blue sky? Yeah, I've been woefully absent from blue sky. I've been consuming a lot, not creating a lot. It's a little intimidating. The people there are really witty, so I feel like I have to be like super on it with my wit game in order to post something there.
Well, it doesn't stop me. Thank you very much, mate. So, more importantly, when I come into the bar next week, will you be here for some advice and some
probably
cocktails?
Will, unless they fire me. Yeah, I'll be
excellent. I look forward to it, my friend. Thank you, Robert. It's really nice to spend a bit longer on these topics and loosen up the format a bit from what we were doing before. And if you have a topic or question you'd like us to discuss in the safe space that is the bar, or have any feedback on the changes I've made to the podcast, please get in touch at hello@rockstarcmo.com or find us on LinkedIn, but please mention that you're a listener. So that's a wrap on the first visit to the Rose and Rockstar as a show in its own right. Thank you for joining us. You can find links to Robert and me in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com, where you can also find our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes, or follow us on LinkedIn at Rockstar CMO. On the Rockstar CMO FM podcast this week, Jeff Clark is back from his holidays and will join me in our marketing studio on Wednesday. And as you heard, Robert will be back in our virtual bar on Saturday. So hopefully you'll join me for those here on Rockstar CMO FM.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.